Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's February 3rd, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. Matt, a lot to talk about today. National Signing Day Part 2 yesterday, some wins, unbelievable get in the last weekend and into the last couple days of Miami with Trevonte Citizen, the running back out of Louisiana. I don't think people realize how good of a player he is because Miami didn't exactly spend a lot of time recruiting him. He was late onto the scene for Miami. But this was an amazing get for the Hurricanes on the final weekend. And then, of course, there was the disappointment of losing Shamar Stewart or not winning on Shamar. I guess I should put it that way, because Shamar Stewart, Matt, was always in the Texas A&M camp for many months of this recruiting cycle. So let's pull it all together, digest it all. We have a content item today that takes a look at the overall picture of what Miami got and what they might be looking at here in the transfer portal over the next few months. And I had a chance at the press conference, Matt, to ask Mario Cristobal just how different all this is, and how he probably used all elements of recruiting more in this recruiting cycle for Miami than he has really in his entire career when you factor in the early signing period, the transfer portal, and now the late signing period.
Yeah, so it's pretty remarkable, right, that you get 14 recruits, 5 transfers in what has it been? Maybe, I don't know, is it 6?
7 weeks, yeah.
6 or 7 weeks. So at that rate, he's going to have 472 recruits and 322 transfer portal people on the team.
Here you go with the damn numbers again. You just can't resist.
So listen, Trevonte Citizen.
I just want to say one thing though before you go forward about numbers. Since you had to introduce numbers to the broadcast, I did some research after signing day yesterday on the numbers. I think right now Miami is ballpark around 91. Yep. So that means they're about 6 over the 85 limit. So there's going to be some attrition. And how much attrition is going to depend partially on what happens in spring practice, number one. And then number two, how many players they pick up between now and the summertime. They're not going to stop looking. This team has needs at a lot of different positions, and there are going to be guys after spring practices all over the country. They're going to pop into that transfer portal. Miami is not going to stop looking, so expect to see a lot more roster churn here in the coming months. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, and just as a quick addendum, we're right on track for what I said yesterday morning, which is about 10. I would expect about 10 over the limit, so about 10 would have to leave when it's all said and done is what I expect. And what we talked about previously, because fans get confused about this. So what I talked about previously, you don't want to bring in the young transfers, because that costs you numbers, and it does. But just keep in mind, anything over that 7 does cost a spot in the 2023 or 2024 class. It's just math. It does. But it is what it is. You know, some people will say, well, we got to win now. Some people will say, well, build for the future. It's up to you. You know, you make the decision. I guess I'll trust Mario Cristobal on it. But just so people understand, after that number 7 guy comes in, there's 5 now. 2 more are free. They don't count against the 25 of the future. Once you go above that, then you're starting to lose spots counting backwards. Okay, so you'd have 25 plus, what did they take? They took 14. So you got, you really have 11 openings that you can count forward for 2023, 2024, 2025 even, you know, if you want to fill up. So they're going to have plenty of spots available. So if you want to take a few away from 2023 and 2024, you can. But if you want to sign 30 kids in 2023 because it's such an amazing class, well, then maybe you don't want to really go too far over that 7 transfers this year. But that's up to Mario Cristobal to decide. So let's forget the numbers for a minute and talk about Trevonte Citizen, because you said that we hadn't paid attention to him. I've been saying for a few days now, this is exactly what they need and exactly what they don't have on their roster. This is a power back with the speed to be a difference maker. They haven't had a running back like this on the roster. I can't think the last time. It's been a long time. They've always had guys that are either lighter and not power backs and super fast, or guys that are big and not fast enough to where they can break tackles. This is a guy who can, as Mario said, he can run outside, he can run up the middle, he can catch passes. He's actually a great pass protector as well, which Mario didn't mention. But his coaches have said it's uncanny how good he is at pass protecting at his age. They've never seen anything like it, and they have a pretty good program where they play against good teams and have a good team themselves over there. So this is an amazing, amazing pickup from Miami. I thought it was a really interesting story I got from their coaches yesterday about how, he really went into that weekend visit last weekend that he was going to Florida, and then he was so blown away and called up a couple of former Hurricanes, Frank Gore and Clinton Portis, to see what they thought, and was just blown away by what they said. Came back on the plane, lands on the plane, and says, "I'm going here, coach." And of course, Florida doesn't give up, and it was sort of back and forth over the last 24 to 48 hours after that. But Miami did win out. That's all that matters at the end of the day. And this is as big a pickup on offense as I can remember at a skill position, because he might be a 4-star, but this is a kid. Trust me, you'll look back when you come back 2 or 3 years from now and look back at this video, you'll be like, yeah, that kid should have been a 5-star. He's the real deal. And you only pick up 3 other guys, but that's okay. Mario's stressing the front line so much. It's actually a little bit almost like, where you sort of get fixated. Hey, if you have like a song in your head, which happens to me sometimes, I'm not going to tell you which songs, but it gets in your head and you can't get it out. Like for Mario, the song in his head for 6 weeks has just been offensive line, defensive line, offensive line, defensive line, offensive line, defensive line, offensive line. And even today, even after picking up 2 defensive ends in the early period, 2 defensive guys in the portal, an offensive lineman in the portal, 2 more offensive linemen yesterday, another defensive lineman yesterday, he still says in the press conference, we need more defensive linemen and offensive linemen. We're still looking for the summer. So, I mean, maybe he could field a team of offensive linemen and defensive linemen. I'm joking.
Be honest about it, Matt. I mean, that's where you win.
Listen, that is where you win. That's where you start. You can't win games and championships without a great defensive line and a great offensive line. It's smart. But I just think it's funny. He's so fixated on it.
Yeah,
and the biggest key for me, and you'll read the story today, linebacker. They don't have a coordinator or linebackers coach to recruit the last 6 weeks. That's put him behind the 8 ball. I understand Mario has to make the right hire. I don't blame him at all, but they've got to get, I think, 2 high quality linebackers out of the portal after spring ball, period. They just have to.
All right, a couple thoughts to sort of digest everything you just said. The first thing, the fixation with linemen, that's how the SEC builds their teams. This is the formula that Mario Cristobal used at Oregon to build Oregon into a solid team out there, out west. You build from the inside out, the line of scrimmage out, and that's what he's doing. So the next question you might ask is, why did Miami need 2 running backs in recruiting when you already had 4 on the roster? And I'm gonna tell you why. Jalen Knighton is a smaller back. When he's played very well, but he is a smaller back, number 1. And number 2, if we're honest about it, there's dependability issues there. I mean, this is a guy that got himself suspended for the first 4 games last year. So you can't just ignore that if you're a coach coming in. You're hoping that Jalen Knighton does the right things and stays eligible and works hard and is one of your top couple running backs. But you have to be prepared if he's not. And that takes you to Don Chaney, who's been injured now 3 years in a row. Can Don Chaney stay healthy for any extended period of time? Then you look further into the depth chart. Thaddeus Franklin is overweight, didn't practice very well last year. Coaches were not enamored with him, the last staff. And then Cody Brown, there's question as to how impactful he's going to be able to be as a college football player. So, yeah, you need running backs. Absolutely. Henry Parrish is a kid that's going to come in and factor in right away in the rotation. And now you got a freshman who could come in and be the best of all of them, possibly. We won't know until he gets here in the summertime. And it's a tall order to just walk in and fill a role like that. But I feel pretty confident, as Matt said, that Citizen's going to play next year. This is a kid with a lot of ability, and I don't think they recruited him to sit. So you got competition in the running backs room. There's no room for unreliability like Jalen Knighton brought this team last year in having to miss 4 games, which, some people would make the argument that maybe Miami wins an extra game or something if that hadn't happened with Jalen Knighton. So you put it all together, and it all makes a lot of sense. And we take a look at the Citizen recruitment, which came together really over the last 3-4 days. But as Matt talked about on the recruiting weekend, and then just by hanging in there on Monday and battling it out into the wee hours of the morning, and finally waking up on Tuesday morning with Trevonte Citizen signing with Miami. So all together, Matt, if we were to sum up the late signing day and the combination of early signing day, transfer portal, late signing day, I think you'd have to come to the conclusion that Mario Cristobal is making progress in building the roster.
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt in a short period of time. The only real disappointment to me was Shamar Stewart. That's the last time I'll say his name. From now on, he's going to join that he who can't be named category as one other person has already joined that category. So anyway, the funny thing to me, and this tells you everything about the guy who's on the other side of the screen from me, who has, for some reason, a really weird background today. So he goes to the he who can't be named press conference, and he's got the live video going. And we had a pretty good idea by that point, actually by yesterday morning, that Shamar wasn't coming. There was some hope the night before with the new coordinator that maybe something could be swayed. And Mario Cristobal does not give up. He didn't give up on Shamar, so you just don't know. But by that following morning, we had a pretty good idea he wasn't coming. But Gary, of course, being the diligent reporter he is, he said, hey, it's still the biggest name recruit, local top 5-star. Who knows? Maybe something crazy will happen. So he goes out there and does the live video for all the Miami fans. And the second he who can't be named announces for A&M, the video goes off, and Gary takes off, and he was out of that building before anybody else.
I saw that. I'm not gonna lie. I saw a kid.
There's a video of you circulating where you're actually sprinting out the building.
I couldn't get out of there quick enough. I was disgusted by what I saw in that room.
Right, which is great.
And it has nothing to do with favoring Miami or anything like that. I'm telling you, if they have one of those surveillance cameras at the school, they'll just show you like running out of that building. Like Shamar announces, he gave me an answer. You're running out of there. I was the first car out of the parking lot. Trust me. No, that's the God honest truth, Matt. I'm not going to go into all the details because, I'm not going to drag the whole thing through the mud. I'm just going to tell you, I was totally disgusted by pretty much everything I witnessed in that room yesterday. And I hope it's a long time before I see it again. And I was ready to move on. I did my duty to the Canes Nation. I knew everybody wanted to see the.
You took one for the team.
I did. I knew everybody wanted to see the crap show that was probably going to be. And I went there and I filmed it. I broadcast it live. And when it was over, I hit boop. And broadcast over.
But the funniest thing, because literally, if you're watching that video, for the fans that watched that video, he literally, the hat goes on and the camera's off like almost right away. You almost can't even see the hat getting put on the head. It's just bam, and then he's sprinting to the exit.
Couldn't get out quick enough. And you know what I did, Matt? I raced to I-95 and I zipped down and I made I headed east on, I guess that's 395. And I went and I had a quick lunch on the sidewalk outside of Joe's. I got some stone crabs that were not tortured.
Don't get me started. I was supposed to go stone crabbing on Tuesday, and you said, "Hey, Matt, something might happen. You better stay home."
Yeah, you better stay.
So you owe me. You should have bought me an order of stone crabs. You owe me that.
But I went. I raced over there. I got myself a container of stone crabs and a couple grilled tomatoes, and I parked myself at a table on the sidewalk in the front of Joe's. And guess what was the first thing that happened within 30 seconds of me sitting down there?
You want me to guess?
Yeah. Can you guess?
Within 30 seconds of sitting down at Joe's?
On the sidewalk. I was outdoor dining by myself. I was decompressing from everything I witnessed at Miami Pace. I had about an hour and a half before I had to be at UM for Mario's press conference. And I said, I'm going to get some stone crabs. Matt's not the only damn one in town that ever gets to eat stone crabs. I haven't had stone crabs in weeks, and I want some stone crabs for lunch. So I was probably going about 80 miles an hour because I still was so outraged over everything I saw at Miami Pace. So I grabbed my stone crabs and a couple grilled tomatoes, and I sit down on the sidewalk at the tables out front of the takeaway now.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's awesome. I sit down out there and I go to start eating my stone crabs, and guess what happens?
I'm going to guess a bunch of supermodels sat down with you and started asking you about recruiting questions.
Close. One of our loyal viewers of Good Morning CaneSport, and you know who you are because you're watching this morning, comes walking across the street. He's like, Gary, oh man, I love hearing Matt's show every morning. I wake up every day, I watch it. What do you think of recruiting? We talked about recruiting. And you know, a guy was very knowledgeable. I mean, he had been on the website, he knew everything, man. He was all over it. And I didn't get his name, but it was just kind of cool, just sitting there, and one of our loyal viewers from the show was going in to get his own stone crabs, and it was fun. And then I luckily I gave myself about an hour and 15 minutes to get to Mario's press conference, because the damn traffic going from South Beach to Coral Gables is an absolute nightmare.
Yeah,
those of you that live in South Florida, avoid that at all costs. It is a nightmare. But anyway, let's get back to the point.
Yeah, I mean, let's get back to the point for sure, because my wife tried to make those grilled tomatoes and they were awful. I tried to make the Joe's Key Lime Pie out of their own cookbook. It's their recipe. I did exactly what they said. Nothing like the actual Joe's.
Nah, you got to buy it.
Don't buy the Joe's Key Lime Pie cookbook. That's all I'll tell you.
You could go out on a boat and torture some stone crabs and throw them in a bin or whatever you do with them, and take them home and boil them in a pot, and they'll come out maybe pretty similar to what you might get. But that you got to buy the key lime pie. You're not going to be able to replicate that at home.
No doubt.
All right. So let's get back to the news of the day. All right. So I think we pretty much talked about recruiting, and we feel pretty good. I think we agree, Matt. We feel pretty good about what they got done in recruiting, and there is going to be more coming. And we do an analysis of what might be coming in the coming weeks. And so if you missed the coverage yesterday of all the signings and Mario's press conference, you still have that on the site. We do have the breakdown of how Miami won on Trevonte Citizen. And then we have the analysis of the remaining needs. So that kind of wraps up recruiting in a nutshell. We're going to take a look at the stories we have today on the 2023 recruits. But first, we must hear from our buddy Gilbert Frierson and Life Wallet.
911, what's your emergency?
When you're injured or suffering a medical emergency,
my name, Gilbert Frierson. My image, right before you. Like me now. My life depends on it.
Life Wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
All right, and they have more commercials coming soon, I'm told. So I actually previewed one with Tyler Van Dyke and his girlfriend, the golfer Morgan Pankow, who was the first female athlete to get an NIL deal. And it's kind of cute, whatever. So we're waiting for a final cut of that, and we'll start mixing that in for you guys on the show. And then I'm told there's going to be a bunch more. So, but anyway, back to the news of the day. 2023 recruiting. Probably in a little bit of a hiatus, I got to think right now, Matt. Like, they hit it some here the last few weeks.
There's no hiatus with Mario Cristobal, trust me.
Yeah, but there's just other fish that got to be fried right now for a few days.
Yeah, it's not like kids are going to be swarming the campus. It's a dead period. So, yeah, for a month, there's not much going on other than they'll be offering kids and calling kids and talking to kids and that sort of thing, yeah.
Got to get the offensive coordinator hired. That's the next order of business, I would think.
Yeah.
I still think there's several candidates. There's been a lot of Frank Ponce conversation, the Appalachian State offensive coordinator, who's got a pretty good reputation for coaching quarterbacks. I would remember that name. He's a guy that could factor in. I still think that there's guys in the National Football League that have been on Mario's radar, and I think that he's going to continue to look there. I think it was delayed a little bit by waiting on Ken Dorsey to see what Ken Dorsey was going to do. But now that Ken Dorsey is locked in with the Buffalo Bills, I think you might see Mario start looking at some other guys in the NFL for sure. And then there's going to be more college names that are going to keep popping up. The guy at Tennessee his name has been rumored a little bit. He's definitely interested in the job because his agent has clearly started telling people that, because I got, I think, 4 calls yesterday telling me that guy was one of the candidates for the job. So obviously he's spoken to Mario and wants and his agent wants people to know about it. And he's a decent coach. I mean, his name's Alex Golesh. He did a reasonable job at Tennessee. I'm not going to go too into him. We're not big on rumors. If we played the rumor game on the coaching searches, I mean, think about how many guys we would have rumored in the last month that didn't get the job. But I think Alex Golesh is one of several under consideration. Keep him on your radar. Keep Frank Ponce on your radar. And I think there'll be more in the coming days. I got to think that the offensive coordinator job starts getting a lot more of Mario Cristobal's attention now that they've finished recruiting. And then he still has, a few position coaches that need to be hired as well. And I imagine between Kevin Steele and the new OC, they now will have a chance to have some input in those final hires, which, Matt, I think you would agree is fair. I mean, it's fair to give a coordinator 1 or 2 spots on the staff if you can, to bring in, 1 or 2 of his guys that he's worked with in the past.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, the head coach is the head coach and the coordinator is the coordinator. It's almost like when you have these package deals, right? I'm not a big fan of that, where if they're bringing in a friend, that's not for me, man. I've seen that at Miami just too many times. I want to come with my buddy. I'm not coming without him. Because the problem becomes, if your buddy winds up being a horrible coach at his position, he's not getting fired, or you're leaving as a package deal a lot of times. That's what happened. That's what happened with Mark D'Onofrio and Al Gold. I mean, there's so many examples of that through the years.
Like Rhett Lashley brought Garen Justice and Rob
Right.
Likens.
There's so many examples, and I'm just not a fan of it. I'm a fan of bringing in the best guy. And honestly, if you don't know him, you don't know him. But if he's the best guy, you bring him in. So
I know, but should Mario Cristobal, if he has the option of letting these guys have input, should Mario Cristobal dictate to his new coordinators every single position coach? Not necessarily.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Right. That's the thing. So a coordinator says, I'm only coming if you take this guy. That's not for me. That's like a recruit saying, hey, offer my buddy and then I'll come. That's just not for me. So I don't know if that's what you're asking me. I'd rather just hire the best guy at every single position. And if your offense coordinator says, I'm not coming unless you hire this guy, you just tell him, listen, I got a better guy at that spot. We're trying to hire the best possible staff. And if that coordinator doesn't understand that, then that's probably not the right coordinator for you. That's just my opinion. Because that's a red flag right off the bat. That's a red flag. The guy wants to be a control freak already. What, am I wrong?
I don't agree with you on this.
Because I have a friend who I want to hire to CaneSport guy, so you'll pay his salary, right? I'm only staying with CaneSport if you hire my buddy. So that's fine, right? You said it's fine.
If you had a buddy that kicked butt at the level that you kick butt, absolutely we would hire him. I mean, with no reservations. I mean, no reservations.
It's my wife. She's not going to do any work, but if you just pay her salary, that's going to work out really well. So.
And by the way, we are hiring. So if anybody has any great candidates out there to come work with us at CaneSport, CaneSport@yahoo.com is where they should send their resume. What we're hiring is somebody who can go to Joe's and pick up stone crabs for us to bring to the office. That's what we're hiring. Just to be clear, I want to make sure everyone understands what we're actually hiring. All right. So anyway, 2023 recruiting. We have a couple stories today on. We're trying to introduce you guys to some of the different names and faces and that are you're going to be hearing over the next 6 to 9 months in 2023 recruiting. And one of them is a defensive back from Alpharetta, Georgia, by the name of Bryce Thornton. We have an update on him today. Another one is a wide receiver by the name of Kelton Henderson. He got an offer despite the fact that there's a lot of really good receivers that are already being recruited in 2023. So, you'll get a feel on Kelton Henderson. And the interesting thing about him is he's a teammate of Richard Young. So Miami's recruiting that elite running back, Richard Young from Lehigh High. And Kelton Henderson plays with Richard Young. So probably noticed him while looking at Richard Young. And he already has an offer, like I said, in a year with a lot of good receivers. So that tells you what they think of Kelton Henderson. So you've got those two updates. Huh?
He's an athlete, but yes.
Yeah, he is. All right. Another thing that is on the website today that I encourage everybody to watch is I had the opportunity to get with Jalen Rivers the other day, and very, very nice kid. And he's been battling back from the injury that sidelined him last year. I personally think he's the best offensive lineman on the roster right now. And so you can get brought up to date on how he's doing recovering from his injury and his outlook on his new NIL deals, the Mario Cristobal coaching change, Alex Mirabal, and just everything that's been going on in the program. I encourage you to take a look at the Jalen Rivers content item. That's
by the way, I was surprised. I looked at Jalen's Pro Football Focus grades when I was sort of typing up a little story to go with your video. They're not real good over the last couple of years. I was a little surprised about that. His run blocking, one of them was better than the other. The other number was pretty bad, and I think overall he's like right around 60, which is very average. And coaches last year were telling us, "Oh, he's our best offensive lineman," which was a little weird. I guess it's a small sample size, maybe.
Small sample size.
Yeah, because I know he's really good. That's why I was so surprised. Because I know he's really good, and I look at the number, it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I like Jalen Rivers a lot. I think he's going to thrive under Alex Mirabal's tutelage, and you're going to see him become a very good college offensive lineman. All right, and last but not least, Matt, let's talk basketball for a moment. I thought that game against Notre Dame last night was an absolute stinker. Probably due for a performance like that, considering how well they've played in general here so far in the ACC schedule this year. But just a very flat, listless performance, I thought. And
it's funny.
They didn't shoot well. They didn't play defense. And Notre Dame played well.
Well, see, that's the thing. So Miami did settle for a lot of shots, but it's interesting to me. A coach will say, "Oh, the team didn't have energy," but a lot of times when you don't have that energy, it's because you don't get in that flow where you're getting excited because you're doing exciting things, right? And Notre Dame really was the first team I've seen that Miami's faced that matched Miami speed-wise. And Miami usually will get 10 to 20 turnovers, honestly, a game, because they're faster than the other team. They get their hands in the passing lanes. And Notre Dame was just so quick and crisp with its ball movement. There's only 6 turnovers created. And there just wasn't a chance for Miami to get that usual energy it has. So when Jim Larrañaga says the team seemed to step slow and didn't have energy,
they were.
To me, it wasn't from within the team. It was because of what Notre Dame was doing, was stifling what Miami wanted to do. So it's a fine line. Was the team not prepared for the game? I think the team was prepared for the game. I just think Notre Dame played really well. They played to me the best game against Miami I've seen a team play, and probably laid the groundwork for how to beat Miami with using a zone with quick players. If a team doesn't have quick players, you can't do what Notre Dame did. But for teams that do have quick athletes, and Notre Dame has 5 guys like that, then that's really, they just showed the formula for beating Miami. But Miami really, as weird as it sounds, I think they do better against bigger teams. Is that weird to say? Because we were saying before the season that bigger teams were going to crush Miami. We have no center, we have no big men, but they just create so much havoc with their quick guys against bigger teams. And now this team came in that just was a little smaller, a little quicker, and they really had issues.
I thought they were a step slow on defense, just looked very flat-footed on defense, and they settled for way too many jump shots.
Correct, but they couldn't get. Notre Dame had the one good big man, but they just couldn't get to the hoop. The zone defense was shutting them down. They weren't hitting threes, so Notre Dame didn't have to come out of the zone very much, and that's what happens when you can't get a team out of the zone.
Yep, horrible shooting night. Wong Namagusti really struggled, and it all added up to getting them behind the 8 ball early in the second half, and they didn't play very well. But despite the stinker of a performance last night by the basketball team, our ace intern, Cal Friedman, really nice kid.
Shout out to Cal.
That has started working. We're going to give him a little shout out here. Started working for us here the last few weeks. And he did a sit down with Jordan Miller, who is the transfer forward from George Mason, and got to know Jordan a little bit, and took a look at how an unexpected turn of events led Jordan Miller to Miami and how it's paying off. And so give Cal some love. Read his first big feature story for CaneSport.
He did a great job.
Very excited about it. Did a nice job. And I hope you guys will enjoy that on the website this morning. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. A lot going on. I hope we capsulized it for you, and hope you have plenty to absorb on the website. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us today on Good Morning CaneSport, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
See you next signing day, everybody.